Well, I am here with the Green Dynasty family. I am here with Jeff Green and Pam Green Vinett. And these two people represent a family that has a real serious history in a lot of places and a lot of things. And their dad was a remarkable man. They have talents that you can imagine, and they have generations that are continuing. And when you look at Black history, there are some things you think you know, there's some people you think you know, but there's a lot that you don't know about these people. And so I want to welcome Jeff and Pam, and I want to say thank you for being on with us and being on with me this evening as we celebrate You Are History. I believe that we have to celebrate people now because we don't pay attention to we are making history. And I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself for those people that don't know who you are, and then tell us about your. Let's begin with William Green, and you guys can figure out who's going to tell what where.
All right, I'll defer to you, Jeffrey Green, since you look just like him. So do I, incidentally.
Okay. Anyway, William Green was abandoned as a baby and was adopted by a gentleman out of Waycross, Georgia, who was coming up north to work in the coal mines and blah blah blah. And there was this baby left with a what do you call it, a note on him saying, please take care of my child, I can't take care of him anymore. Get him, get him together, get him in school by a certain time. He needs to go to school, blah blah blah. And so he took the child along with another young lady that was in the train station, just hanging out. There was an orphan and out there begging and stuff. He took both of them up north, and she later passed away of pneumonia. And my father's William Green survived. They moved to Youngstown. They lived very poorly uh, uh, over on the east end of town on Andrews Avenue. And my father was industrious at an early age. He dreamed at the age of 5 that he wanted to become a lawyer, or 6. And whenever he got a break from school, he would go downtown and watch court cases. And he did that all of that time while hustling and selling glass bottles and things like that to make money for himself.
That
And
tell the
so,
truth. They used to jump on the railroad car and throw the coal off,
oh,
collect
they,
the
well,
coal,
yeah, that was something. Yeah, that's true.
and turn them in for a penny each, whatever they could do to survive.
Whatever they could do, he says he remembers putting cardboard in his shoes because they had holes in them, and he didn't want to ever do like that. His father was kind of a wild kind of guy, and he was the kind of guy that would cut you just as soon as say hi to you if you crossed him the wrong way. But he loved my father, and even though he had one stepmother that was very mean, he was afraid to ever tell his father that the stepmother treated him mean, because he was afraid that his daddy would kill her. And so that that was some of the things he would tell me, long stories like that. And he became that lawyer that he wanted to do. Got born again probably at the age of 56 or so. And he and my mother started family ministries, and they ministered all over the country, whatever they could do. But he did have a great record as a prosecuting attorney, a great record as a lawyer. Uh, even doing one thing, many people never got a chance to go to court for a divorce if they came to him and my mother, because they would counsel them and get them together and stay in place. And many ministers in the area will tell you that knew them at that time that that is the truth. So they went through this journey. My mother also, I'll let Pam say most about her, but came, we're Geechees out of South Carolina. This is my grandmother and grandfather were Geechees.
Yeah, they
And
were.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we ate rice for every meal and and all kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my grandfather never spoke the broken Geechee
What
language.
was your grandfather's name?
His name was Rufus Wigfall, Deacon Rufus Wigfall out of the Shiloh Baptist Church,
See, now
Youngstown.
that's what you got to give us some history here.
Gotta
So
give it.
that's how we get connected to the Wig Falls.
That's how we get connected to the
So
Wigfalls.
can we, before we get to your mom's side, and can we talk about the wig falls a little bit, because I have not run into, and I haven't run into a wig fall to interview a wig fall to talk
Okay.
about the first of wig falls, because Mr. Wigfall had, I wanted to say, when the first carpet.
Now that's my
Robert
mother's
Wickfall, that
cousin.
would be that would be his nephew. My grandfather's nephew, Robert Wigfall, had the best carpet company in the black community. And I mean,
And one of the only ones.
he wasn't the only one. But his son now has the business. But Uncle Bobby laid carpet for hotels, theaters, private homes, and everything. He was a very successful
Jeff, what
carpet.
was
State
it?
buildings. He got state
He got
contract.
state contracts. When I met
Yes,
him, he was doing state contracts. He was one of the only few black men who had a carpet business that was doing that kind of volume.
because of how he came up. Uncle Bobby was really a Republican. You couldn't tell anybody that. You weren't allowed
Jeff,
to.
we're not allowed to talk
No, you
politics.
have to say it like that because that's how he got into the state, and he got all of these contracts.
We
He
go.
he did everything on the turnpike. He
Yeah, he
did
did
everything down in Columbus and many of the state buildings down there for years,
for years.
years, and nobody knew it until he was written up. And um, I think it was Governor Rhodes and I forgot the other governor that gave him a particular award for being one of the most outstanding businesses, not just black businesses in the state in contracting. So he made a mark, a definite mark. And his father was Lawrence Wigfall, which Lawrence, he was one of the intellectual people of his intellectual blacks of his day, and his children, including my aunt Margie, who is 98 years old right now.
Wow.
Um, uh, Aunt Margie was very, very, refined type of person. She and my mother made a pact that they would not, that they would be educated, and they would do certain things, and they would carry themselves a certain way in public, and they were very classy. And Aunt Margie still is classy, and has personal air about her, not of feeling I'm better than anybody, but that this is how we should convey ourselves in
Right,
life.
right.
And that's a good segue to Mrs. Green. And I have to say this, to be perfectly honest, I didn't have a chance to meet her, but we only had two names. The first name was Mrs. Last name. So either you knew the first and last name, or you knew the first and the first name, but you never knew the whole name because you only called them by one or the other. So I wanted Pam. Jeff said you were going to bring in about your mom, because
Well,
from I understand that she was a remarkable woman. I never got a chance to meet her. I knew Mr. Green, Attorney Green. He was no joke.
absolutely extraordinary. I can't really talk about my mom without talking about my dad first. My father was a prolific uh, man. He was one of the most exceptional attorneys in the Youngstown area and really in the state of Ohio. He worked as a prosecutor, city of Youngstown and the state of Ohio for a term of 17 years. During that 17-year period, we grew up literally with our father being an attorney and a prosecutor. So when he
Hold,
went,
slow down. Whoa, stop, slow down, slow down. So see, Jeff, see, I didn't realize. So he was a prosecutor in what era? Was it in the 70s, 60s,
this would have been no, this would have been early on in
80s?
our lives. I was born in the 50s. Jeffrey was born in the 50s. Michael was born in the 40s. So this is when we were young kids. We grew up in that literally.
So
Uh,
what was it like? What was it like being? Was he one of the first black prosecutors in the county?
Shonday, he was one of the first.
If he was not, was
He
he the
was,
first?
There's only one other. That was Attorney Howard.
yeah, Attorney Howard. So Attorney
Yeah.
Howard was after Daddy, right?
No,
Sure.
he was before
When
that.
he was
Okay.
before. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was the two of them. I don't know anymore in Ohio history to know whether they were the only two for a long time, but I know that he was singularly the only black prosecutor during his time of being a black
Well,
prosecutor.
I can say this every time we have a black prosecutor, there's only one black prosecutor in the time of Mahoning County to being black prosecutors. Now, don't get it twisted. It's never double.
Being in Ohio, that's the problem with being in Ohio. Yes, that's how it goes sometimes. But by the time he went into private practice, of course, he knew all of the judges. He knew, most of the attorneys who were attorneys of work. And so he seldom lost a case. He had certain judges that absolutely detested him because he was so good at being an attorney. In fact, I used to watch the show Matlock because Matlock reminded me of my daddy. He was meticulous in doing
Yeah.
cases like that.
Yeah.
That Jeffrey, isn't it true? Jeffrey and I wanted to go with him when he would go to investigate murder cases and stuff like that. He wouldn't let us go. He would not let us go. And
No, we went nowhere.
No.
I worked for him for 7 years, off and on for a 7-year stretch. He,
Would you call that child labor?
yeah, you got that child labor. I actually enjoyed
Just
working for
checking.
my daddy. The only problem was most of the time he wasn't in the office. He was in court and he'd be in the office, and that was.
Yeah.
How
But
did that? How did that? Hold, wait a minute. But how did that contribute to your work ethic?
it contributed very greatly to my work in my ability to really stick and stay with something, and also in my ability to learn every aspect of your job. Because I didn't go to law school, I didn't go to school to become a legal secretary. I'm a vocalist. I took after my mother's profession. So working for my dad, I had to learn everything by rote, right? And it was those old-fashioned dictaphone machines and everything. You're listening to them in one ear and typing with the other. And then you had the little ribbon in the typewriter, the whole 9 yards. But it was so fascinating. And he was so fascinating to watch in court. He was a master. I mean, people used to come just to watch this guy in court.
And you know, it's
Because,
really funny when you say that. We can't capture that. At that time, technology would not allow us to capture
no.
him. Because being now, you can go in there, you can actually capture some people, capture cases.
Yes.
We needed to see that because at that time, to see a black man in court, it's rare to see a black lawyer in court now across the board, and that's something that we need to deal with as African Americans when we talk about Black history.
I
We are
can't.
still minorities and sub-minorities across the states and the counties when it comes to the judicial system.
That
Had
might
it.
be in the state of Ohio, but we don't seem to have a big problem with that. We have quite a few black attorneys in the Tulsa area. In Atlanta, Georgia, is there a dime a dozen, and in different places across the
But
country.
remember, we're here in Ohio, across and we're talking about in Ohio.
We
You're
got a ton
impacted.
of
This is
attorneys
Ohio,
now.
huh?
We have a ton of black attorneys now.
We have attorneys, but we're talking about prosecutors.
Well,
Oh, prosecutors. No, I don't. Well,
no,
Prosecutors,
true.
prosecutors.
I mean, black prosecutors are coming up in the news almost daily, and a lot of them are women.
that's in big cities, sis. Not in not,
In big cities.
not
Well, whatever. I mean, we have them. They're still not as much per capita as we would like to see, but we still have them. But it was a wonder working for my father because my father was electrifying. His elocution skills were incredible. He was an excellent writer. He was very good orator. He could speak off the cuff the law like nobody's business. But if you put him in another arena and you ask him to speak on anything else, he couldn't do it.
Not
Okay, I
good.
mean, you know what? I got to tell you guys, this is an interview. I got some questions to ask.
Okay.
We only
Oh,
want to be here in a short period of time. Because if we take too long, we will never get to where we're going. And you know how big the Green family is? We cannot spin. We got to come back.
All right.
All
well,
right.
I want to
So
come back because I was writing.
I need to get to your mom, and then I need to get to y'all, and I got to get to Mike. I got to get to your kids. And y'all just want no. I got questions to ask.
Well, we'll
It's
tell you a
hard to
little
say
bit.
just a little bit.
I know, but we want a snapshot because the man you can. Missed Attorney Green because we haven't even gotten to his political career. We have none of that. That's a whole. There's so much to say about Attorney Green, and then he married well.
It would be virtually impossible for us to give you the whole dossier on the whole family. But I just wanted to put that little piece in there about my dad being a prosecutor because it was a whole big deal.
It is,
It
Father
was.
but and
was
so and
Dorothy May Wigfall. Because she was born in the rural South, they didn't have a birth certificate for her. So they literally over years had to make up a birth certificate based on information they could get from the Black community in South
what
Carolina.
year was she born?
We're not absolutely sure. What year was on that
Piece of paper.
with that birth certificate?
20.
19
Uh,
something like 26 or something like that.
Wow.
Well, anyway,
Could
she
have
was
been. I
Okay.
can't remember.
well,
Okay.
let's put it that way.
He
She
was
was
23, so it,
It was
it
around
could
that
have been
time. So it was in
26.
1920, somewhere around that
Yeah.
time.
She grew up in Struthers, Ohio, and her dad worked in the steel mill. As Jeffrey probably said, my grandpa worked in the steel mill, and my grandmother was a domestic laborer. So they raised her and a sibling, Elise Wallace. And so as my mother was growing up, her voice matured very quickly. This is really unusual. She was 7 years old and she could sing like a troubadour. She sounded like Ella Fitzgerald at 7. And so she would sneak out of the window when by the time she was 14, go down to the local clubs and she would sing and sneak back in. And one time my grandfather caught her sneaking back in, and that was the end of that career. But she went to
Yeah.
Youngstown State University. She studied
So your mom went to Youngstown University back when she was she a young woman or was
in
she
the School of
what? Wait,
Music.
Pam, slow down, Pam.
Let's
Was
see.
she a
Hey, you
young?
told me we don't have any time. Now you
I
put
know, but was she a young woman or was she an older woman? Because you
Young
understand, a
woman.
black woman going to Youngstown University to do vocals, she
in.
was a
Just like
rarity.
everybody else that started as a freshman. She was a freshman going to Youngstown State. Youngstown State was Youngstown College then. It wasn't
Okay, there we go.
University. Youngstown College, Dana School of Music, where she majored in vocal arts. She had the best voice teachers there. She was the first to sing with the Sheet and Tube Chorus with the Youngstown Symphony, the first Black to sing with the Sheet and Tube Youngstown Symphony. She was the first Black to do many things. She dedicated so many buildings, we can't count them. She wrote the alma mater for
Struthers High.
Struthers High School.
The one
Uh,
that they sing today.
Yes.
yeah, it's
Wow.
sing today. Mom wrote it. And so she has so many things in her dossier. I mean, I just can't begin to see it.
So how did they find each other?
They
On
found
campus.
school. Say it again, Jeff.
On campus.
At Youngstown College.
Yeah.
They met at Youngstown College.
Wow.
My daddy tried to sing to my mother to get her interested in him, and that was a real turn on. Could not really sing, right?
It worked.
But the first time he heard her sing, it was love at first sight. So that was that.
It
They got
worked.
married really
Yeah.
young. I think she had her first child at 21.
And the first child was whom?
Michael Stanley Green.
And Michael Stanley Green was whom?
Our big brother.
And I didn't get a chance to meet him, but he has shoes that I would love to have seen because from what I've heard of Mike, he was a big man.
Big guy.
Right.
My brother did all types of stuff, good and bad, when he was young. He was a Black Panther when he was young, but he was always a musician. He started on the clarinet and graduated to drums. and but drums was his forte. That's what he wanted to do. I
I,
inherited his clarinet, and that's how I got to do the other things. Pam, of course, inherited my mother's voice and singing, just like my baby girl has now.
yeah.
And then my brother married a singer, Karen Clark Green, and we were just this huge entourage of
Musical
musical
family.
people.
Yes.
So what, y'all just kicked dad to the side and said, just, just be my manager? What?
No,
You know what?
he got
Listen,
legal help.
listen, I'm trying to convince people.
Sing bass, you know.
I'm trying to convince people that we need to say no more entertainment, no more athletics. Go with the and what do you tell me? What my mama, my mama can sing. Once we found out we were musically inclined, said, "Dad, you write up the contracts. We got this."
Well, yeah, but he played trombone at one time too. So
Yeah, he
Listen,
did. My daddy had a pleasant voice. He just wasn't a solo artist, right?
he
So when
sang
we
in the symphony.
sometimes when we would do music and we go out as a group, as a family group to do ministry, then he would sing bass and he was really pretty good at that.
He
Okay,
could,
so
he could
we could
sing.
do four-part harmony like that.
what
We
was it? What was it like being raised up in the green? Your mother's name is what? Let
Dorothy Mary
Dorothy Dorothy
Wigfall.
Bigfall.
Dorothy
Dorothy
Mary
Marion
Wigfall.
Wigfall Green.
What was it like being raised by those two people?
Wow.
That's a show all by itself. Raised, raised in the Green household. It was a laugh a minute. It was a riot now.
It
What?
was a riot. It was
How?
some craziness, and it was some haunted house going on, and
Oh God, yeah.
all kind of stuff.
Absolutely haunted house going on. How
Yeah, absolutely.
demonic presences. But that's another whole program.
Yeah,
Because the reason why I asked that is, your dad. When I met him, he was a born again, don't play, fire baptized in Jesus' name man.
Yes, indeed.
hmm
And Jeffrey said he got saved when he was about 56.
Mhm.
And
somewhere in that.
so that means you guys were a little bit older.
1978 would have been that time, and that
And your mom was woman of faith, and even and actually your house was a full of faith because there was a standard before Jesus showed up, but he was always there until he got there.
Yeah.
If that
yeah,
makes any sense at all.
It was a standard because our grandparents really lived sober and righteous and holy life, as the Bible says. Uh, my mother and father did not all of our lives. So they went to church and they believed in going to church. So they would send us to church if they couldn't go themselves. And we go to whatever church was in the neighborhood. Then we go to the Lutheran church, Jeffrey. We went to
Lutheran,
Baptist
Mennonite.
church,
So how
Mennonite. Yep. Any
but
kind of churches in the neighborhood, we had to go to it if they couldn't take us to Centenary United Methodist Church,
so let me
Right.
ask you this.
Hallow Baptist Church.
So let me ask you this. You guys were not raised as young children in the church.
No, we
But
were
every green that I
like
didn't met,
kids.
every green that I didn't met in my adult life,
Yeah,
been in the church. So how, what was, and I believe the word of God. And I can't have a interview with the Green family and not get into this type of talk conversation because of the gifting that comes on the Green household. You can't be prophets, you can't be born again believer preachers, pastors, and hold the fivefold apostolic ministry, have them in the house and not attach it to when you talk black history and not get to it.
It- like I said, when our family got saved, I came home and got saved. It's absolutely a wild story to tell you how it happened, so we don't have time for that. But
We got to
it
do a
was
series.
supernatural all the way through, and God really did a work in our family because my mother was very sick and had throat cancer and heart trouble and some other things. Went on a retreat one weekend and got saved and got healed. Now she still had sometimes different types of things that bothered her, but at the time she got healed of all of that stuff, and that was through a 700 club thing. My father had gotten saved when I came home from the service, and my brother was saved. When he
He was
told me
the
he
first
got
one.
saved with as wild as he was at one time, I just thought he was
He
crazy.
was
I
the
hung the
first
phone
one.
up on him.
He was the first one. That's the
He
one
was
that
the
changed.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
But
mother
I
led me to the Lord.
because your whole church, everyone, if everyone that I know since I've met the Green family, they've always been associated deeply within the church. And it's funny to say that, or for you to say that you guys were not raised in a household that was as churchy as the Greens that I met when I was an
no,
adult. That's amazing.
Yeah, not a saved household. We were a party house. We could have the best parties in the neighborhood. I'm telling you.
Over there on the
in the
south side.
city.
Parties after whatever, parties for Christmas, parties
So
what.
wait a minute. So don't. So you guys were raised on the south side.
We were
Yeah,
raised in the south, lower south side at
What
that.
school?
South High,
What elementary schools?
Grant,
Grant, Hillman, South High.
Hillman Junior High. That's
What was it? What was it like going to school at that time in Youngstown?
it was actually wonderful, except that it was underprivileged. I mean, we didn't get money in the school systems like the white schools in the suburbs did. We got makeshift everything. We didn't go on field trips the same way they did and things of that nature. But we had the best teachers. And this is why I think that a lot of this history is missing. But because I started out studying education and switched over to vocal arts when I was in college, undergraduate school, I learned this thing about us. Because in the Black community, only a few of us could go to Harvard, Yale, whatever, on a scholarship or whatever, graduate from Harvard or Yale with honors because you had to be 50 times better than your white contemporary to be able to get into these schools. Well, once you graduated, the white schools wouldn't let you in. So guess where these people had to go? We had to start our own schools. So when we started historical Black colleges, you had Yale and Harvard grads from MIT, these big Fortune 500 schools that were the instructors in these schools. And it went all the way down to high school, grade school level. Many of our instructors that were Black when we were growing up already had doctorates. They had master's degrees. And so our education level was superior to many people's education level, even though we were deprived of proper textbooks, we were
We
deprived
didn't
of
need them.
we didn't we didn't need it
We
because
didn't
we
need them.
had that great education that got encapsulated in the Black community. That's why we excel to this day.
Well, I'm going to ask you,
That's why
Jeffrey,
we excel to this day.
and I asked someone else earlier today.
Mhm.
What happened between 1972 and 2024? Because our children and our young people and African Americans, and yes, they are thriving if they have opportunity. But we have in the country, the educational attainment of Americans is not at a premium as it should be. If that's being said, our inner cities, where some of our children are, a good majority of them are across the state of Ohio and throughout the country, they're
Hey,
not,
yeah,
huh?
I'm sorry.
They're not getting,
I
they're
thought I
not,
liked myself. I was calling my daughter.
they're not getting what they need. And how do we start giving back to our community because we no longer live there?
Tracy, you've heard me say it a million times that it is by design that inner city schools fail Black people. It is by design. We must, as a people, find it in ourselves somewhere to start going after these the educational curriculums of the all Black colleges, I mean schools that graduate 100% from high school, 100% go to college and graduate as well. Those have to be mimicked throughout every neighborhood in the nation, but notice that you will not get it. You notice that they know that these schools are successful. Notice that they will avoid those curriculums like the plague. because they only want a marginalized people to keep certain people in power. That's all it's for.
Because when I look at our
And
young
they're
people,
replacing you now.
when I
Uh,
hey, hold on, when I look at
okay,
you,
but
hold on, Jeff.
that's not
When
here.
I look at you now, when I look at the Green family, when I look at your children, Pam, and I look at Jeff's daughter, and I look at Mike's kids, these are grown men and women who are carrying the ball the next yard. And we have other young people who had and should be, but yet we're still having homicides in the streets. We're still having um, low graduation rates. We're still getting some stuff that we shouldn't have in an area, in a community across the state of Ohio, across the nation. In 2024, if I can talk to you in real time through a computer, are you kidding me? I mean, really? This is some, this is some high tech stuff. Pam, you all the way in Oklahoma.
Hmm.
We were raised, you were raised, Tracy, out on the Sharon line. You had a group of black men that cared. Excuse my mouth, but they gave a damn about the outcomes of their neighborhoods and their schools and things like that. Those men stuck together. They were intellectuals. They learned about things if they didn't go to college themselves. They learned about things and they brought it back home. We were taught. We had to memorize Reader's Digest uh, uh, uh,
The
things.
word, the vocabulary words.
We were all reading before we got to school. We were reading, and my mother would give us the Reader's Digest things and tell us to memorize them. We know what they mean, know how to spell it, all of that. She did not play. She raised us. My father did what he did, and he was able to have us travel. It it's really good when you've been to D.C. and New York and other cities, Chicago and St. Louis
St.
before you
Louis,
graduate high school.
Oregon. We traveled all
Right,
around the country.
Oregon, across the nation.
Yes.
We traveled. We saw things. So we didn't have the mindset that our neighborhoods had. Some of them, but now
Right.
out on the east side, that was a different story because those families, even still today, have people that are achieving and doing great things
We have
in the nation.
we have people who have come out of Youngstown and they are rocking the world, and I'm interviewing them all day, every day, with which includes the Green family too. I am not. I am interviewing people, and none of my people that I'm interviewing are losers.
Mm-mm.
They're real people. They're really rocking,
Right.
and we need to understand that we are bigger than what we know. And if we ever got our synchronization together to be cooperative in what we do, we would catapult into the future of getting things done. Because today, we need to hear our voices and the voices that have a voice of God in the marketplace. Because our children need it. And I'm going to throw the ball to you, Sister Pam. I got to do that. The voice of God in the marketplace, because the nation at large, the country at large, the Black America, we have lowered the standards of everything that I've ever known as a Black woman when I look at our future today. I mean, we, our parents held a standard that we were so high that we still trying to jump through it today.
Right. And I think that we've raised our children in our family at a very high standard. And I think that's why they're in many ways overachievers. We have extremely talented children. I have two that sing and are worship leaders in major churches in America. One of them is at Michael Todd's Transformation Church, Tulsa, who has 2 million followers. So all of these things, they come into existence according to how we as a society come together and know God. So if you're talking about working from the Christian community out, then we have to know God first. See, the knowledge of God is more widespread now than it ever was in the history of the church, but we have fewer people that are tuning into it. So, what we have to do is start cultivating the positives. It's too late right now to look at all of the reasons in the backdrop as to why this happened, why the education standard lowered and everything else. I personally believe it's because a certain group of people wanted the workforce. And so they undereducated massive
Absolutely.
elements of people to get a workforce, not just Black people, brown people, and what
Everybody.
they consider as poor white people. Certain sectors of the country were chosen out and they were made into districts, so they did this undereducated. But God is evening the playing field because He's got people out here like you and like Jeff and like me who can educate. So I think the key is to educate as much as possible. There's a young man that's rising up in the church. His name is Joshua Giles. And there's another young man that's Michael Todd. Joshua Giles is an apostle of God. He's a young man. He's only 35 years old. He has hundreds of thousands, if not a million followers. He gives great conventions, but he's a voice that's out there. He's already been to the White House several times, and he's been to other places with high order. I won't say any more because that could cause him some friction and some problems. But what am I saying by this? God is raising up an army of young people that do know and understand how to combat this.
That's right.
He's a prophet and he's a very powerful one. And when he speaks things, they're coming to pass at an alarming rate. It's because of his platform that now I've been able to reach young people. And boy, they're reaching back to me. Okay. So the generation gap is being closed off by people in the generation that are respecting elders to the degree that they're putting elders on platforms and they're allowing us to express what we know after years and years of knowledge of God and going forward. I can't begin to tell you the controversies that Michael Todd has caused with Transformation Church Tulsa, but he's reaching more people than people that he's making angry. And that's the thing that's the good news. His services are absolutely wonderful. I mean, if you could ever get to Tulsa, I would take you to church with me.
I'm gonna tell you, I gotta bring her back to Ohio,
You
don't I?
would love them. You would
Do I
love
need to
them.
bring her back to Ohio?
You would love him. But
And I believe that. And I'm coming as soon as I get a chance. I'm coming to visit.
you better do it.
I'm coming to visit because I follow Pastor Todd. I follow the situations, and there's a lot going on. And but when I go, I got to come back. I got to come back to Ohio because
Yeah,
you are from Ohio, and Jeff lives in Ohio.
yeah,
And Black history, both of you have made and make.
yes,
And sometimes people think they know people, but they don't know. Everybody knows Jeff, but there's a lot about Jeff that they don't know.
right,
And there's a lot of heart of Jeff that they have no idea.
right.
They just know who Jeff is. And if you don't tell your own story, and Jeff, I got you to tell yours, and I need Pam to tell hers because you guys have your own history.
Yes, indeed. Well, I was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio. Went to South High School, Grand Elementary, Hillman Junior High School, as we covered earlier. But I went to Youngstown State University and majored in vocal arts, and I think that's where I really found myself. I knew I could sing, but I was too shy a person. In fact, all the way through school until I was in ninth grade, I had a doctor's excuse where I wouldn't have to stand up in front of the class because I would pass out cold. When I say pass out, hit the floor, pass out cold. I was terrified of standing in front of people. And the way that I got around it is that I worked with Jeff. I don't know if you remember this, but you worked with me on this Aretha Franklin song, Take a Load Off Annie. You worked with me so I could sing that song in South High's variety show. And I sang that song in the South High's variety show with the record, right? Because back in the day they did that because you didn't have any group.
No band, nobody could play nothing though.
I sang it in South High's variety show, and that was the beginning of the end of my having terrors standing in front of people.
Okay,
And
so let's, Pam, you mentioned something, and I think you're one of the first that really mentioned it. Can we talk about the South High variety shows that they used to have back in the day? Because, we all, and it didn't like they had cars and you had transportation. Your parents wasn't, getting to the South Side from the Sharon line is a long way.
it sure was.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that was, I mean, if you think America's Got Talent, you had to go to a South High school, and it was in the field house.
It was like being in Detroit, wasn't it, Jeffrey? It was like being in Detroit because singers were almost a dime a dozen in Detroit. And you can go on any street corner in Detroit and find four singers that could outsing the Temptations and everybody else. It was the same way in Youngstown.
It sure was. We had many groups and many great singers out, and still got great
Who-
singers here that
Great.
that can do it. The talent coming out of this area,
Booker Newberry.
Booker Newberry, uh, of course, we know Billy Beck,
Yeah,
who wrote everything, Ohio players, and
Ohio.
then you had the bass player that plays the Barney Miller theme. I can't think of his name. Right from the Rand School, and I played in bands, and we played for everybody's variety show. Even after that, the
Did.
Rand, North, South. I played in variety shows.
I had to put a pin right there because that's some history right there that people may not know. And I hope there's somebody's got some pictures somewhere that we can one day see
Oh
that they
yeah,
actually snapped a photograph and kept it or something of those variety shows because they pop locked before locks was popping. And I mean, it was a industry that was
yeah,
here.
that's in later years.
We remember, I'm younger than you guys. Remember, I'm the
Well,
baby.
they did. We danced, but we fast danced, and we did the modern dances and stuff like that. Uh,
Yes.
th-
And we
but
moved when we sang, which became a lost art a few years later. But we moved, we
yeah,
had steps, we choreographed and danced to steps when we would sing in group. You know that Karen and I were in a group with Michael and Jeff. Weren't you in the band with Michael?
no, I wasn't in the band, but I
You
wasn't
were
young
you were
enough,
probably too young to be in
old
the
enough.
band yet.
Yeah,
But Karen, Phyllis Franklin Gray, and I had a group called Something Love or something like that. I
just
can't remember.
love.
Love.
It was
That's what I
love
thought. You probably had another
because
name to it.
no, because Jake and them came after y'all with Ice Cold Love.
Ice Cold Love. Yeah.
Yeah.
They stole our name, but they could
Funky
sing
Clardy,
too.
Jerry
Yeah.
McElroy, June Bowens.
Yes,
Okay, wait a
indeed.
minute, Jeff. Hold on. I gotta go back. I only put a pin in it for a minute. Let's go back.
Okay.
Let's go back. So, had you started singing, and then you went from there to Youngstown College or
I went
Youngstown
from
State?
there to, I went from Youngstown State to University of Michigan. But before that, I studied in Graz, Austria in a musical program. I sang the music of George Gershwin. I sang opera all over this eastern board of Europe. And I even went into Bosnia Herzegovina, which is the former Yugoslavian republic. We were at that same border crossing where they started the war in Yugoslavia that divided into Bosnia and Herzegovina. Karen and I were on tour there. So I've had a rich, rich life in that. I recorded in one album just a minute part in a bicentennial album for University of Michigan at CBS Studios in New York. I've been on some of the most prestigious stages in the world performing opera. I've mastered over 19 operatic roles, which is pretty hefty, including Carmen, which is the heart of a mezzo-soprano's whole
And
thing, whole
and then when I
regimen.
hold on, when I meet you, you are prophesying in an orange dress with flat shoes on.
Now, see, you had it up there to remember that orange dress.
That that stuff turned
Like,
everything. Listen, when,
everything
when
changed. Didn't it?
Jesus changes everything.
He
and
changed everything.
really, really, and that
I
didn't
love
stop.
my life.
That didn't stop our art, us being
I
artful,
like
and,
you.
and
No,
because
no,
God
not at all.
uses what you are, where you are,
And
to
what
do
you
what you
have.
have to do, and if part of history is in this area is many of us who have survived to this day, almost everybody is attached to the church one way or another. Church musician, this,
True.
that, and other. The people, and then we've lost many others that weren't attached to the church in any way.
So true.
And so whenever our example could be that Jesus is life, and
It,
it's real, and it's not churchianity or the fake, fake
It's kingdom.
religiosity.
kingdom, real
It's
kingdom,
kingdom.
and how it should be and how we should treat each other. All of us, we may not agree on certain things in the world, but we are a family. And when
We
something
are
happens,
close.
we come together. And
That's right.
there's no ifs, ands, and buts
That's
about it. We on that line.
How important is that? And
Oh,
Jeff, I'm getting ready to give you at least 10 minutes because it's going to take you 100 years to get to your resume. But, but how important is it that we understand that no matter how the world breaks down, people matter, families matter. But the Bible says to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor
that's
as
just right.
yourself. And we need to get some self love so we can get some neighborly love because we were raised by a neighborhood that loved us.
We were. That's the whole thing. Real quick, I was born, and my identity was I was Attorney Green's son, Dorothy Green's son, Pam and Mike Green's little brother. That was my identity.
For how
I was a little,
long?
I was a little
Also
skinny.
Martian. Also Martian, because we told him the Martians dropped him off on the curb and he believed it.
So here I was, this little. I was a sickly, skinny, skinny, big nosed kid that always had a runny nose, and couldn't see nothing. So, but I never. My mother, I had asthma really bad. Pam and I both had asthma really bad. We could have checked out of here many times,
That's
but God kept us
yes,
um,
he did.
until modern medicine actually came into view. And so that's really something because we came through that. But
That was horrible.
through all
Of
the things that
Jesus.
happened coming up, like I said, we had a haunted house. Uh, my mother and father at one time were not getting along, and I was the only one left at home to sit there and witness them fighting like Andy Cap and Flo in the room. So I was taking Valium in seventh grade. So, but that's okay. We went through all of that. We we smoked dope. Oh, I don't know whether Pam really smoked any, but her
No,
boyfriend
I
gave me some,
didn't.
and I thought I was going to
I
die.
drank. I didn't smoke dope. No, I did
Well,
not
I
do it.
did. But anyway, I was a musician, and I was going for the gusto. But the bottom line, when I went away to the service is when I found out who I really was, because nobody knew Attorney Green. They didn't know my family. They didn't know. They only knew Jeff Green, and those were my friends to this day. Because one thing, they recognized me for me and not for anybody else. And
Yes,
that's a place you need to really get to
yes,
in
he
life, because you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and have confidence.
indeed.
These kids today have nothing in many cases to stand on. Some do. Some are very talented. These young guys I meet in the street and at the barbershop, they all call me Uncle Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay, old school or Uncle Jeff. And they love me, but because I don't treat them bad because of things they might be doing or taking part in. I got lots of drug dealer guys that kill a rock for me because they know me as being somebody straight up. I can only be that straight up because I was there one time and understand. I'm not,
Yes.
my actions are not who I am. My actions are what I did, and their actions are not who they are.
That's important to learn.
It's important for us to,
Because a lot of people even identify with how they work. You are not your job. Who are you?
right?
You are not your position. You are not your computer. You are not you are not your title. Who are you? And everyone needs to know they are somebody special because God created them that way.
That's right. And the
Minus their
worst,
job, minus their identity. They're good on their own.
Tracy, one of the worst things you can do to this younger generation is preach at them. It's one of the worst things. You need to get into their heads where they are, and you need to talk to them heart to heart. They will
Yeah.
listen to you then. They will listen to you and they will follow him. Because the whole idea behind Christianity is not to show us, it's to show him. And if we can live something that shows him, we will draw men to him. And it's time out for the church getting all upset and uptight because somebody might sing secular music or they might be in another place other than church while they're singing. Get a grip, secular media. He said, go into every man's world. He said, go throughout the world, preach the gospel.
Miss Pam,
That's why
Miss
we have
Pam,
no
I'm gonna bring you back. I promise you. As soon as I get my wheels up, I gotta get my wheels up. Right now. We're doing Black History. I'm not doing
well, this is the
conversations
thing
about what
about
system.
history on the black church, because right now the psychiatric fields are actually getting ready to list the psychosis is religious rejection. Okay, it's becoming a psychosis because so many people have been ostracized from the church. You have people that run around here talking about church hurt. That's black history. The church didn't hurt you, the people in it did, but that's another story altogether. But nonetheless, we have to go into every man's world. We
Don't.
can't just go into our church world and preach the gospel. You have to go into every man's world and preach the gospel.
I'm
That's
with
what
you.
we're
But
about.
I'm with you. But as we go through Black History, I'm not. I want to be viral. I do. But I really want us to understand that we are our biggest asset.
Absolutely.
You are our biggest asset. And to
Absolutely.
get our young people to understand that we are history, they are history, and we're making history every moment.
Absolutely.
And they can write whatever they want to write. And you guys, your family has done remarkable things. And we will get back together because Mr. Pam, we got to do that separate. We got to have shows, and we'll figure this out. And Jeff, I'm coming back to talk about politics but is there anything that we have missed about that you want people to know about you that they don't know? If somebody said they knew everything about Pam, what don't they know that you know they don't know?
My heart breaks for the plight of children. I love people enough that I gave my life and dedicated my life to serving them in ministry now, where I used to serve them as an entertainer. I have always loved what everybody else disliked. I always stood up for the underdog. I always I was a civil rights leader in my own right in my day and time. And now I lead for his rights, for people to have the right to enter into the kingdom of God. That's the best part of me that I can tell you about.
Mr. Green, since you done sat here and made me do gymnastics with the clicker
Sorry
board,
about that. I was trying to go pick up my wife.
I'm glad you wasn't going to the restroom.
No, 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 not at all. But I
I
can't get
said,
my
where
phone to
you going?
work, so
Oh
So,
boy,
Mr. Green,
yeah.
everybody knows Jeffrey Green. But there are things about Jeff that people don't know. What do you want people to know that they don't know about you?
That regardless of what I think or don't think about you, I honestly just love you. I love you unconditionally. I love you because at one time I was full of hate. I hated white people because I heard a guy tell my daddy, "You almost ran me in the ditch back there, boy." I also said another one called my daddy a nigger. And when that happened, I my father said I turned to look toward the car and said, "Hey, niggas." And I didn't know what one was or nothing like that. I was just a little kid. But it affected me very much that until I got into the military and I started saying that all white people weren't bad. And some were my friends, some were not. And then I got saved shortly after that. But yeah, I hated, I hated. I had hate in my heart. I don't have hate in my heart for nobody.
You know, Jeff, we'll come back and we need to do a show about that because changing hearts is something that we don't talk about.
That's so true.
We don't, you know, your heart changes over years, and we blame people for what they did yesterday. And even when you have a heart change, we don't recognize that there's been a change that's come over me.
Come
That's a song, wasn't it?
over me.
Um,
Tremaine Hawkins.
you want me to sing? A change.
No, Tracy, no,
Oh,
no.
crap.
Wait till next show.
Next show, okay. Listen, guys, I thank you. We will do this again. I knew getting you both together would probably be a great thing and a long thing, but I don't want to wear them out that long because this is, an hour is a long enough time.
So thanks, Tracy,
But
for this.
you guys are history, and you guys are special to me. You have no idea the affinity, the love that I have for you guys, and the appreciation that you guys have been a part of my life. And I call you my brothers, my sister, and my friend.
Absolutely.
And we
Thank
feel
you.
the same way about you. And if there's one thing that Jeffrey Green said that was true, he does have a huge heart. I love my brother.
You know what? Y'all special. Jeez